Alright, let's approach this slowly. When people hear inimitable style, they usually think it means it's just very beautiful writing. But that's actually the surface. Because if it were only about beauty, then in theory, another talented writer should eventually be able to produce something similar. Right? We've seen that happen with poetry, with novels, even with speeches. Styles get copied, then improved. But here's where the Qur'an becomes strange. It doesn't behave like a normal literary style. Think about this. Classical Arabic had very clear categories: poetry, with strict meter and rhythm; prose, more free, but still recognizable. Now imagine a text that is not quite poetry, but also not prose. It bends rhythm, but never fully commits to meter. It sounds musical, but refuses to follow known patterns. So when early Arab listeners heard it, they couldn't place it. And that matters more than it seems. Because humans understand things by categorizing them. If I know what this is, I can imitate it. But what if you can't even classify it? It's like trying to copy a song that doesn't follow a fixed tempo, and changes its structure just when you think you've figured it out. Now let's go one layer deeper. Imagine two different people listening. One hears it and says, "This doesn't sound like anything I know." Another says, "This feels intentional." Same words. Two very different reactions. And here's the subtle part. The Quran doesn't just present language, it controls expectation. It leads you toward a rhythm, then breaks it. It builds a pattern, then shifts it. Not randomly, but in a way that feels meaningful. Think of a film scene. You expect music to rise, but suddenly, silence. And that silence hits harder than the music ever could. The Quran does something similar with language. So now the question becomes, is its inimitability about the words themselves? Or the way it manipulates the listener's perception? Because if it's the second one, then copying vocabulary won't help. Even copying structure won't help. You would have to replicate the experience it creates. And that's much harder. Here's the twist I want to leave you with. Maybe the challenge of the Quran was never produce a similar text in the usual sense. Maybe it was more like, create something that behaves like this, something that cannot be comfortably categorized, yet feels internally precise. And if that's true, then the real mystery is not, why couldn't they imitate it? But, what kind of system produces a text that resists being imitated, even before imitation begins? That's a really sharp question. Because it forces us to move from, "this is unique" to, "okay, but what does that actually do?" Let's start very simply. Why would it matter that a text is neither poetry nor prose? At first glance, it doesn't. It just sounds like a technical detail. But think about how we normally listen to language. The moment you hear something, your brain asks, "What is this? A poem? A speech? A story?" And the moment it decides, it switches into a mode. If it's poetry, right pointing arrow, you listen for rhythm, emotion. If it's prose, right pointing arrow, you listen for information, logic. Each mode comes with expectations. Now imagine a text that refuses to let you lock into one mode. You start listening like it's poetry, then suddenly it delivers a precise argument. You shift into analysis mode, then it hits you with something deeply emotional. So what happens? You never fully relax into a pattern. Your attention stays alert. It's like watching a film that keeps changing genre. You think it's a calm drama, then it becomes psychological, then suddenly existential. You can't predict it, so you stay engaged. That's one advantage, it keeps the listener cognitively active. Not passive, but there's a deeper layer. When something fits a known category, you compare it. This sounds like that poem. This reminds me of that writer. But when something doesn't fit, comparison breaks. And when comparison breaks, it stands alone. Now it's not competing. It's confronting. That's a very different position for a text. Now let's flip to your second question. What about an English speaker? Someone who doesn't even feel Arabic poetry versus prose. Does this still matter? At first, it seems like it shouldn't. Because they're missing the reference system. It's like hearing a musical innovation in a genre you've never studied. But here's the interesting part. Even without technical knowledge, humans still feel patterns. You don't need to study music theory to feel when a song breaks expectation. You just feel it. So even in translation, something still leaks through. Not perfectly, but partially. You might not say, this is neither poetry nor prose. But you might feel, this doesn't read like anything I'm used to. Some passages feel compressed, some feel abrupt, some shift tone unexpectedly. It can feel unusual, even slightly disorienting. And that disorientation is not a flaw. It's actually part of the effect. But here's the honest part, a lot is lost in translation. Because the precision of sound, rhythm, and structure is deeply tied to Arabic itself. So the full force of this in-between style is much harder to experience in English. It's like watching a film in low resolution. You still see the story, but not the texture. Now here's the twist. You might think, so this feature mainly benefits Arabic speakers. But maybe that's not the full picture. Because a text that resists categorization does something else. It doesn't just challenge a language. It challenges the reader. No matter what language you read it in, you can't approach it lazily. You can't fully predict it. You can't fully settle into it. And that creates a different kind of interaction. Not consumption, but engagement. So the advantage is not just stylistic. It's behavioral. The text doesn't just deliver meaning. It controls how you receive it. And here's the strange possibility to leave you with. Maybe the Qur'an's inimitable style isn't trying to impress you as literature. Maybe it's designed to prevent you from ever treating it like literature in the first place. It keeps the listener mentally alert because the text never lets them fall into a predictable reading mode. It makes the Qur'an stand apart from all known literary forms. So it isn't easily compared or replicated. And more deeply, it doesn't just deliver meaning, it actively shapes how the reader experiences and engages with that meaning. Alright, let's not go abstract. Let's see it. Example 1. A sudden shift inside a single passage in Surah Al-Ghashiyah, 88, it starts almost like a scene. Have you heard of the overwhelming event? You expect a story to unfold. Then immediately, images of faces, fire, exhaustion. Almost poetic, visual, emotional. But suddenly, without warning, it shifts. Do they not look at the camels, how they are created? Now you're not in a scene anymore. You're in reflection, observation, argument. It's like a film that moves from a dramatic sequence straight into a documentary shot of reality. No transition, no warning. Your mind has to recalibrate instantly. That's not standard poetry. And it's not standard prose either. It's something in between. Example 2. A single verse that feels like both emotion and logic. Take this short verse. With hardship comes ease. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. At first, it feels like reassurance. Almost like a calming line you'd hear in poetry. But look closer. It's repeated, almost like an emphasis in argument. Not just emotional, but structured, deliberate, almost logical. It's doing two things at once, comforting you and convincing you. That dual effect is hard to classify. Is it a poetic line? Or a precise rhetorical assertion? Now here's the subtle point behind both examples. In each case, just when your brain starts to say, I understand what this is, the text shifts. And that shift is not random. It's timed. Which leaves you with a strange realization. You're not just following the text is constantly repositioning how you follow it. Let me leave you with something a bit unsettling. Up to now, we've been talking about the Qur'an as if it's something you analyze from the outside. A style, a structure, a linguistic phenomenon. But think about everything we touched on. A text that shifts your expectations, a text that keeps you alert, a text that refuses to let you settle. At some point, something flips. You're no longer just reading the text in a fixed way. The way you read starts changing. One person opens it and sees fragments. Another sees patterns. Another feels something personal. Same text, different experience. So what changed? Not the words, the reader. And here's the strange possibility. Maybe the inimitable style is not just about producing a text that others can't copy. Maybe it's about producing a text that never behaves the same way twice because it keeps interacting differently with whoever approaches it. And if that's true, then the real uniqueness is not only in the text itself, but in the space it creates between the text and the mind reading it.